What's up, everybody? Let's see what kind of creepypastas we can find. What's up, Jerry? Yeah, you're first. Yeah, I've already done it. Hey, Meow. How are you? I feel like the Super Troopers. Right, Meow? Yeah, I'm a dork. Well, what the fuck? Let's read The Fearless Vampire Killing Brothers. Oh, that's a new one to me. Can't hear? I'll talk louder. Is that better? That's not a sound. Carefully, slowly, so that the thick, heavy door wouldn't squeak as it swung open. The brothers entered the darkness, the creature's lair. They had to be quiet. If the monster's keeper heard them and found them, they would be doomed. Cautiously, they crept to the slumbering monster of the night. In sleep, it looked so peaceful. It was hard to comprehend the agony and torment the foul creature had brought to their lives. The creature had appeared earlier, its unholy presence bringing an awful change, and since then nothing had changed. The nights were filled with dreaded howling. During the day, evidence of its rampage was made clear. Walls ink splattered in strange patterns. Loved ones forever. It was time to put an end to this madness. And the brothers had to be cautious. They could not alert the creature's keeper to their presence. Silently, one brother raised the wooden stake and brought the tip down on the chest of the creature, nervously licking his lips while the other readied the wooden mallet. They gave each other a furtive glance, a nod, the mallet striking the top of the stake. The tip of the stake pierced the creature's pale, soft skin, and the monster awoke with a deafening howl of fury. Quickly, the mallet was brought down again, and the stake slipped from the monster's rib cage into his heart. Black the wound, and the beast shuddered and shook. Yeah, fuck you. I hate you, Jared. Then fell down silent. The deed was done, and the beast destroyed. Suddenly, the door swung open, and light flooded the room. It was the beast's keeper. "Boys, my God, what have you done to your brother?" The end. Oh, that's great. This one is a non-commercial, so we can't monetize it now. That's alright. I don't know if I monetize streams or not. Okay, go away stuff. What else can we find? I might should have looked for some ideas before I got on here. Just my smoking hole. Let's see if this is it. I think, yeah. This is one by my buddy Killerhawk. What happened to it? Where did it go? Alright. This is a pretty good one. Late night in the hot tub. Air. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I live alone. The ideal time to grab a glass of wine, strip down, and hop into the hot tub nestled privately in my backyard. Wintertime always dries out my sinuses. Is it me or is it just because you're traveling? You don't know because you can't hear. Here. Shit. I want my headphones. It may be that thing. Is that better? Wintertime always dries out my sinuses, and the steam from the 99-degree water is refreshing. I lean back, close my eyes, and listen to the comforting water churn and bubble around me. Nothing is wrong in the world right now. I sit content, relishing this perfect moment in time. That's when I hear it. Faint stirring and the falling of debris coming from the rooftop of my house. I think to myself, son of a bitch, there's someone on my roof. I reach for my cover myself when I see it. A shaky hand emerges from the rooftop. It explores around, touching each of the roof shingles as if it was trying to find just the right spot to grip. The other hand appears and does the same. Then a third and a fourth hand emerge. As it pulls itself up further over the edge of the roof, its thin and long body comes into full view. It resembles a short, toned male, except for the 2 extra arms. Its skin is jet black and rough, as if its body was charred and burned. I immediately lower myself into the steamy water as far as I can. The water level is reaching just below my nose. I press myself against the side of the tub, hoping the darkness and billowing steam will hide my presence from this terrifying creature scuttling on my rooftop just 10 feet away. In spite of its trembling, it moves from the rooftop to the edge of the house with the purposeful movement of a tarantula, lifting one hand high into the air before bringing it down, feeling around the surface before moving the other limb. Then it does the impossible. It lowers itself over the edge. The comparison of this man spider is now complete. I gasp from surprise, taking in a little water through my nose. I snort and contain my coughs as well as I can. I slide deeper into the water, my eyes above the waterline now. I was pretending to be a silly alligator. It jerks its head piercingly upward and sniffs the air. It flicks its head to the left. Swell in my eyes from the fear. Its head sharply to the right and inhales and go prone to the hot tub's wall in my chest and water splashing in my face. It resumes snaking alongside my house like a nightmarish arachnid. It goes from window to window, checking to see if any will open. It meticulously pulls on each window frame and presses a clubbed hand against every window pane. Flashes of panic fill my heart at the thought of that horror to my home. I try to think of anything within my immediate reach that I could use as a weapon. Luck seems to be on my side. Every window was locked and shut tight. It drops its shoulder in disappointment and slowly makes its way to the edge of the house, leaps high into the air, and lands on a nearby tree. It disappears into the night as if it had never been there. I slowly slip out of the warm comfort of the tub's water and reach for my towel, one foot over the edge and then the other. The water drips from my body as I exit the tub. Crash! I'm paralyzed with gut-wrenching fear from the shattered wine glass I had put on the edge of the towel. To hell with modesty, I run buck naked for the door. 10 feet. I see the shape of a man rustle in the trees. 6 eyes reflect the moonlight, and it shrieks a god-awful scream. 8 feet. With loud snapping and breaking of tree limbs, it leaps high into the air and lands on the roof's edge. 4 feet. I slip on the icy porch, skinning my elbows and knees. 2 feet. It drops to the ground and scurries on the snow. Yellow drool pours out of its mouth, prominently standing out in contrast to its obsidian flesh. 1 foot. I lay against the doorknob slipping in my wet and trembling fingers, hissing and gurgling or growing louder and stronger. 0. I pull myself inside and past the door's frame, slam the door and lock it. Not a second later, a crash of something slamming into the wooden door booms across the dark house. I lay with my back against the door in case it tries to force its way through it, but no more sounds come from the other side. Is that better? At least I'm not in the dark. I turn and slowly lift my head to peer out through the window. Our eyes meet, only a thin pane of glass separating us. It glares at me intently with 6 unblinking, 6 eyes. Then it's gone in a flash. That was 2 months ago. It still comes most nights. Not every night, but most nights. No one believes me. Every day before sunset, I check every window and every door to make sure they're all locked. I dread the day that I forget to lock that one single window. It will eventually get inside. It's getting smarter. It won't be long before it realizes it doesn't have to move on just because the flimsy window is locked. Late Night in the Hot Tub by Killer Hawk 1. What the hell is the Eyelid Man? Let's see about this one. Crap. The tale of the Eyelid Man is still young. Based on the unfortunately minimal amount of information I can find on what I saw, my experience with it have been one of a kind. I am almost certain that the majority of you are in no harm whatsoever from him. I'm not writing this to tell you how you or your loved ones may be in danger, but rather to officially document my story. Should you encounter the thing, very little can be done to save you from my fate. You may stop reading this anytime you like, but the only thing you need to know is this: the Eyelid Man is real. I know he is. He's with me right now. It was several months back when I first started seeing the thing. At first, it was nothing I could pinpoint. I began having the unmistakable feeling that I was being watched just about everywhere that I went. This wouldn't have been so much of an issue if the feeling had eventually subsided. It never did. No matter where I was or what I was doing, even if I was sure that I was alone, I felt the pressure of eyes staring at me. I could never see who it was or gauge where it was coming from, but I knew that feeling. Privacy was quickly becoming a luxury I was no longer able to afford. The stress began to settle in soon after. I started losing a little more sleep each night. The feelings progressed. I began noticing random flashes of a single image in my mind. These images all happened at odd, inconsistent intervals throughout my day. Every now and then, out of the corner of my eye, or occasionally after blinking, my brain registered a single image for a split second, though nothing was ever there. The weird thing about it was that it was always the same image, two wide, unyielding eyes staring at me. Now the feeling of being watched was consistently an issue. So I wanted to blame the image on the stress or lack of sleep. But the surprise of being... Okay, I lost my spot. But the surprise of seeing those eyes staring back at me was not something I could brush off so easily. They were wide, very wide. They appeared to be slightly bloodshot and very, very still. The pupils were extremely dilated, and they were always directly centered on mine. There were no other facial features in the image, just eyes. The most unsettling thing about them was that they were perfectly circular. They almost didn't look human. They appeared human, but no one's eyes are that geometrically flawless. After several days of seeing this single image occur in my mind, that is when I could ignore it no more. I began scheduling appointments with all sorts of doctors and specialists. I even tried therapy for the first time. Nothing worked. My fear of the image quickly turned into annoyance and frustration. My girlfriend, Alice, with whom I had been living with at the time, was very supportive. She did her best to be there for me anytime I had an episode. But little she did help much either. After I'd wasted much of my time and most of my money with doctors, I began to see the images less frequently. It became easier to brush off. The whole ordeal has a weird recurring hallucination. For a while, I was able to enjoy entire nights of sleep again. After I began no longer seeing the eyes in my mind, I started seeing them elsewhere. I would still have the constant feeling of being watched, but occasionally I would look a certain direction in a crowded area and see a person staring at me. Whether it was at the grocery store, the park, or even in busy restaurants, I would catch someone staring back at me for inappropriately long periods of time. They would often be on the other end of a large room from me. Although them being so far away didn't make me feel any better about the situation. What was especially unsettling was that it wasn't ever the same person. It was always a different person each time. The first time, it was a woman at Walmart. She stood among others walking around, but like nothing was wrong. She stood among others walking around her like nothing was wrong. She just stood there, staring back at me. The next time, it was a teenage boy at the mall. He was with a group of other boys, but none of them seemed to notice the odd behavior. The next was an old man staring outside his window into my house one night. He didn't move for hours, even after I had left. and come back to check and see if he was still there, standing and staring out of his bedroom window. I wanted to go over to these people and ask what their problem was, but I couldn't. The one thing they all had in common was their eyes. Each and every had the exact same eyes that I had just gotten over seeing in my mind. Bloodshot, glaring, void of emotion, very wide and perfectly round. All the fears of anxiety came rushing back for every single time I saw them on his face. I quit my job. I wasn't able to focus on anything except keeping people away. What I saw, I was so scared. After what I saw, I was so scared that soon after, I stopped leaving the house altogether. My girlfriend was able to take care of us both for a while. I felt bad putting so much pressure on her, but I didn't know what else to do. I just needed time to get away from people. I thought it would work, but like everything else I tried, it didn't. I occasionally looked out of a window to see the same stare plastered on some passing neighbor just outside my house. They just stood there for hours, staring into my home. Most of their faces were usually expressionless. However, occasionally one would wear a devious grin that stretched across their entire face. I admit to being one who scared me, but every one of those staring people terrified me more than anything I'd ever known. I wanted to look away and shut the whole thing out as my own imagination. But after 3 weeks of seeing these sick, malice eyes, I knew I needed to face it. I needed to know what it wanted, but I was always afraid of approaching it. Seeing those eyes went from being a once every day occurrence to being a once every single time I looked out of my window. It started with the old man across the street staring out of his window. It then took shape of drivers stopping just outside of my house to stare at me in their own cars. Within the week, it turned into neighbors standing on the sidewalk outside of my house. It wasn't long after that did they start standing on my lawn. I tried to get my girlfriend to see them with me, but like every other person, she never saw anyone there. I would see them moving closer and closer to the house with every time I screamed at them. I threatened the police. When I did finally call the cops, they saw nothing too. I didn't want myself committed, so I tried to convince myself that they were just illusions for the sake of appearances, but I knew better than that. I chose not to look out of the window for a while. I figured if I stopped giving them attention, maybe they'll go away. It had been 5 weeks, and I could tell my girlfriend was growing more and more upset that I was not feeling better. We barely spoke anymore. We shared a bed, but I never slept. She was stressed out about having to work more to take care of me. She was on the edge of packing everything up and leaving. I couldn't blame her, but the last thing I wanted was to be alone. After a week of windows, I took a peek out of one. I checked all, expecting someone to be very close by, but there was no. I looked through all the other windows of the house. Not one of them showed someone staring. I even took a couple of steps to my front door and still saw no one there. I laughed completely without irony for the first time in weeks. It was all over. I could keep my life. I was thinking, whatever insurance was going through my mind at the time completely overshadowed the truth. I had not seen those eyes on anyone for several days. Quick to go look for a job, visit friends and family, and try to do what I could for Alice to thank her for all her help. The ship had grown. Alright, buddy. Yeah, I'm just going to end it. I kind of like this story, so I'll make a video with it.